We're gonna add a little something that's been requested a couple of times. We normally don't do the prayer and the pledge before committee meetings. I don't know why, but how about we start that today? And we'll start this evening with a prayer, and then we'll say the pledge, and then we'll go on through our committees. How about that? Alderman Ashley.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time that we can come together, Lord. We can guide the city in the direction that you want the city to move forward in. We just ask that you would be here during this meeting, that you would guide our mouths, guide our tongues, Lord, and that we would have respect for one another. We ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Alderman Lanchelay for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Public Works, Alderman Jeff Gorey.
Thank you, Mayor. Put your microphone. I'll now open Public Works. The forum is present. Public Works Director Albert John.
Good afternoon. Hello?
It's on now.
Should be.
I can't hear. Hello, hello.
There it is.
Cassie.
Hello? I'll talk loud.
You good now?
Okay, good. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. I don't have any equipment to report about to you guys, but starting next week, we're gonna start spraying for mosquitoes. We'll spray the city once a week in 3 nights.
There you go. Good.
In a 3-night span. So, that's all I got to tell you.
Short and sweet.
Any questions?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Albert.
Thank you.
Next, City Engineer Tim Maker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have some action items in Public Works, the first of which begins on page 4 of my engineer's report. I believe that you all were sent copies by email earlier today. I also, right behind that, I sent you the backup partial payment estimates, etc., so you can see where numbers come from. Page 4 is the beginning of the update on contract A for the street improvements project. And the action appears on the next page, at the top of the page, page 5. I have partial payment estimate number 18 as of May 25th. Contract time has expired. The project is 96% complete by cost. Partial payment estimate number 18 estimates the total value of the work done through May 25th at $6,525,383.31. The amount of $326,269.17 is withheld for labor and material liens. And so the total amount due this estimate is $233,868.86. And I would ask you to consider approving partial payment estimate number 18 to Glenley J. Construction LLC for contract A of the citywide street improvements project in the amount of $233,868.86.
So moved.
Have a move and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. Yeah, on the, this particular contract, the striking of the streets, is that under Glenn McKay's contract?
Any other discussion? All in favor? All opposed?
It's a subcontract under Glenley. He's subcontracted the strike.
Thank you.
Contract B is the next item, action item, where you see F and G in the left margin is where I report on the update. And the partial payment estimate number 13. As of May 25th, with contract time expired, project is 84% complete by cost. Partial payment estimate number 13 has the total value of work done through that date at $8,422,376.84. The amount of $421,118.84 is withheld for labor and material lien retainage. So the total amount due this estimate is $372,547.75. And I'm asking you to consider approval of partial payment estimate number 13 to Glenn Leger Construction for citywide street improvements contract B in the amount of $372,547.75.
Offer.
Got a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Next item on that same page, I have 3 different annual contracts to bring up to you. The first one is where you see the letter H in the left margin, contract for fiscal year 23-24 material purchases. I think you will have a copy of some resolutions in your packet, like this. The first resolution is a resolution authorizing the preparation of specifications and authorizing the advertising for bids and designating the time and place that bids will be received for fiscal year 2023 to 2024 materials contract for the period September 1st, 2023 through February 29th, 2024. Offer that for your consideration.
Have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Also, in that same batch of resolutions, you should have actually a 2-pager. And I'm looking now at item I at the bottom of page 5, and the action actually is at the top of page 6. And in this one, you have an option to consider. So you have 2 resolutions. You would presumably enact one and leave the other aside. What we've been doing with this labor and equipment contract is we've been extending an existing contract that began in 2020. And that contract has been with Inhabits Builders, and it's been extended continuously for that amount of time because the price is just too good to pass up. And if you look at the second resolution of the 2, where it's a resolution authorizing an extension of the existing contract, the preamble to that resolution explains everything. So I'll read it just for everybody's recollection. The existing contract with Inhabits Builders was competitively bid in July and August of 2020. And whereas the low bid of $1,700 daily rate was less than half that of each of the other 3 bids received at the time, which parenthetically I say there, $3,500 a day was the next low bid, $3,680 a day was the third, and $4,500 was the fourth. Whereas for that reason, the contract with Inhabits Builders was first extended for the period March 1st, 2021 through August 31st, 2021. It was extended again for the period of September 1st, 2021 through February 28th, 2022. Extended again for the period of March 1st, 2022 through August 31st, 2022, and extended again for the period of September 1st, 2022 through August 31st, 2023. That last extension was the first time that the contractor was willing to extend it for 12 months instead of 6 months. And so what we're paying and we've been paying for a number of years, is a $1,700 daily rate. So it goes on to say, whereas current construction market conditions are experiencing significant inflationary increases and are expected to bring a significantly higher daily rate than $1,700 a day, and taking new bids at this time will likely lead to much higher overall bids. And whereas the mayor and council wish to avoid the cost of preparing specs and the bid process with the likelihood that new bid prices will be significantly higher than the existing daily rate of $1,700. So now therefore be it resolved, the existing contract for fiscal year 2020, 2021, as modified, is hereby extended through August 31st, 2024. I've discussed it with Habits, and he's willing to extend it for another year. And I just think that if we want to take bids again, we're taking a chance the price will be higher, if not significantly higher, it will be higher still. So if that's the direction you want to take, that would be fine. If you feel like it's time to take bids, then the first resolution is what you would do. You would authorize the preparation of specifications and the taking of bids. We would take bids before your August meeting so you can award a new contract at that time. Otherwise, if you extend a contract, we would do that by change order, and it'll be in effect as of September 1st, continue for 12 months. So that I hope is a concise explanation of what you're looking at.
Need a motion, Chairman?
Yes, we need a motion.
I'll move to extend the existing contract.
I'll second that. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, not gonna,
When was the initial bid done?
2020? It was in July of 2020.
Yeah, I think it's,
Prices have gone up.
not may go up, I'm pretty certain it will go up if we put it out for bids.
Yes.
Yes, step second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And the last resolution for annual contracts is at the top of page 6, item K in the left margin. This is the contract for fiscal year 2023, 2024 for internal televising and inspection of storm drainage and sanitary sewer systems. We took bids on this project in the March-April timeframe. It's something that we wanted to do earlier. We weren't able to get it before council until kind of late this current 6 months period, the last 6 months of the current fiscal year. But we would like this contract to coincide with the other two contracts. So we've always been looking at renewing contracts or taking bids again on all three of these annual contracts all the time. So we're asking you to authorize the preparation of specs in the bid process for the 2023-2024 internal television inspection for storm drainage and sanitary sewer systems that would cover the period of September 1 of this year through February 29th of next year.
So,
second,
And a second. Any discussion?
Yes. Tim, can you explain what the specifications would be for this type of service?
I do better than that, I'll send you a copy of it.
Well, just general information about what you'd be engaged to do, to set the specifications.
It's to internally televise your drainage. If you suspect there's an obstruction, failure of the joints of the pipe, either in sanitary sewage or drainage.
Okay.
And you want to avoid excavation from the ground down. Sometimes you're looking at something in the middle of the street.
Yeah, I understand what the purpose of the internal television will do, but as far as the specifications, that's for you to basically request what you want to have done as far as what to be viewed by them, as far as specifications are concerned.
So, I don't understand your question, I'm sorry. Wouldn't you rather see the specs? If you got a question, you read it yourself. And
So you don't have them today?
I have a copy of it here, but I can email it to you.
Okay, that'd be
Unless you want to read it now.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Good deal.
Okay, we need a motion.
Make this motion. Is there a motion on the floor? I so move.
Yeah. Motion and second.
It was on the floor already.
Okay. So just discussion, okay. It's,
Yeah, it was motion by Sandy and second by Step.
okay, thank you. And, all in favor? Opposed? Passes.
Okay, that's the only action items I have. Every other thing in Public Works is by way of updates.
Okay, item number 6, to consider a resolution by the council authorizing Mayor Chad Malso to engage a qualified third-party engineering firm to inspect street overlay project upon its completion by contractor. The selected firm shall determine if the project has been completed in accordance to the city's engineer's plan, specifications, inform the council of any deficiencies that need to be addressed, and assist council with determination to accept the project.
I so move.
No second. Motion fails to carry. Okay, consider a resolution declaring a portion of recycled asphalt pavement called RAP material surplus and authorizing the mayor to determine the appropriate selling price and procedures to offer and sell surplus RAP to the public. Motion.
So move.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, just one question. The citizens, still get first shot at this?
Put your mic on, Mr.
How is it self-handled? If someone needs some of it, they just go pick it up, right? The recycling?
So, no, so right now, if, what we're using it for now is in place of limestone.
Right.
And if you've passed on Jack Mitchell Drive, you've seen the mountain of wrap reclaimed that we have. Currently, if someone, residents in the city calls and has a hole in their driveway or requests some in their driveway, as long as it's on city right-of-way, we'll bring it and put it there on city right-of-way.
Right.
We can't put it on private property because it's city property. It's just like a roll of paper towels at City Hall, we can't bring it to our house. So we can't put it on private property, but we can put it on city right-of-way, parking spots and things like that around the city for residents and people. And we have been doing that throughout
Yeah,
the city.
I was
Yes.
I know a few places.
It's the same product that we've been doing it.
Yeah, but a few of my constituents called and I remember it being brought out to you. Our constituents. I think.
Okay, we got the motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And with no further items to come before us, I will recess.
All right, thank you, sir. If we can go to public buildings, Mr. Tracy is the only item on that committee. It should be a pretty quick committee. Mr. Alderman Wilridge, if you don't mind, public buildings.
Public buildings convene. We've got a forum on the discussion item. Mr. Tracy Young would like to request the use of Wright Festival building on September 16, 2023 for the Rotary Club event. Mr. Young is at the Rotary Club.
Hi guys, so with Rotary Club, pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, we were doing an annual event called Rise Against Hunger, where it's actually an organization that was founded by the Methodist Church, where they package up meals and they containing rice, vitamins, nutrients, And they send this to overseas countries that may have been hit by weather or famine or whatever. The 2 times we did it, so far to date, we've fed over 90,000 people with those meals. It's kind of hard to describe until you see it, how it works. It's packaged in almost like a 1 pound rice bag. It does have rice. We're gonna have the 2 rice meals. I have to ask them to donate again. They've donated the rice in the past. And so Supreme and both Falcon donated, so I have to ask them, see if they've donated again. It's about a $10,000 project for Rotary. We have local projects, we have international projects, and this is our international project. I plan this to do on an annual basis. We're gonna include the Lions Club in Crowley, the Kiwanis Club in Rain, and the Rotary Club in Rain as well. We're gonna flip-flop cities. We're gonna do Crowley first, and then we're gonna do Rain next year, and that way so we get a bigger target. Now, this is not just locked in if you're in one of those clubs that you can only participate. We invite the community to come out and participate, and I think the last year we did it, we had like 200 citizens of Crowley come out to do it. In fact, we had to turn people away because it was such a big success. We finished in record time. The guy that came with the Rise Against Hunger, he said, I've never seen an outpouring of a small town like this. He said, small towns usually have a big outpouring. He said, but this, he said, it should have taken you 4 hours to package 30,000 meals. And he goes, and you did it in 2 hours. And so it's really a great project. And like I said, I plan on doing it once a year. And I would just like the city crowd to co-sponsor, help us. I've already talked to Jeanette and made a reservation for that date. And so I'm just asking y'all to help us and also to come out. I will be here during September at a council meeting to invite y'all again to announce it, but I would appreciate y'all moving this on to the main meeting and we can go from there. And I'll answer any questions y'all have.
You got a time what you looking at right now?
Probably 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. So I know it's kind of hard to get some people out of bed that early. So early in the morning on a Saturday. So we'll probably get there around 9, start at 10, and I'll probably see what I can do and having pizza and everything, waiting for people or whatever.
Are you asking for the right stuff to be building to be rent-free?
Correct, rent-free.
That's been done in the past.
Right, and in the past, that's exactly what the city has done.
So, Mr. Byron, we need to have a motion to move this to an action item so that y'all can vote on it and move it to the full council next week.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a
Second.
was offered by Mr. Dick Lady, and was second by Mr. Chuck Abraham, that we move this
To an action item.
to an action item.
Take a vote.
All people that names got the right to vote.
We can do a roll call.
Second. You'll second, I'll second.
So,
Point of order, Byron, was that to amend the agenda to move this in action item?
yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. And you have a second on that motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second.
All right.
Yes. So,
Up for the roll call.
you have to do so, Mr. Byron Woodridge,
Yes.
Jeff Dorey,
Yes.
Brian Core,
Yes.
Sammy Reggie,
Yes.
Dickie Lachele. It passes. Now you need to offer a motion to co-sponsor that event with
I'll
Rotary
make
Club.
that motion to co-sponsor the event for Red Fruit. I'll second.
Was offered by Mr. Dick Lady, second by Jeff Dory, that we offer this event to be rent-free. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay, you got the same right? Motion passed.
Thank you. I will not be here next week, but I do appreciate y'all voting for that, and it will be a good event, and I'll be in touch and let y'all know the status of it.
But let me add one thing to it.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad to see you back. I think
Just,
you've been on vacation for a couple of years.
I've been on vacation for a couple of years. I'm gonna go back on vacation right now. That's why I appreciate y'all moving it up for me with work calls. So, but thank y'all so much, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
There being no more business coming for public bills will be recessed.
Thank you, Mr. Fire. Utility Committee, Alderman Martin.
Thank you, sir. Utility Committee, we have a quorum, and let's see, first up with his report is Tim Crater, wastewater superintendent.
Good afternoon. During the month of May, we had 333 Louisiana one call locate requests. 184 of those were updates, 2 tickets that were already filed. We had 24 work orders that were filed and complete. We received our guzzler back from the shop. It's in operation. We have also gotten our backhoe out of the shop. It's in operation as well. We had a couple of stations where we had to pull the pumps that were clogged with flushable wipes. That area, we spoke with some residents in there where we felt that the word would spread, and so far so good in that area, and that was at the beginning of the month. So those 2 stations, we pulled the pumps, undone the clogs, put it back in order, they're working. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report. Any questions?
Anybody got any questions? Thank you, Tim. Okay, City Engineer Tim May.
Thank you, Steph. Again, you all have a copy of my report. The utility engineer report begins on page 14. And the first action item begins on the bottom of page 15. This is the commoner replacement at the main pump station. The action in regard to that project is on the next page, page 16. If you'll look at the left margin, item F, I have partial payment estimate number 4. As of May 25th, the contract time is basically complete. You can mark it up 100%. We left blanks there because when I mailed it out to you all, I didn't have that information, but I sent that information to you later and also sent you the backup. So your copy doesn't have those numbers. I'm going to give it to everybody now so you can see them before you will. Again, the contract was 100% complete by time, 98% complete by cost, and partial payment estimate number 4 has the total value of work done through May 25th as $423,400, and the amount of $42,340 is withheld for labor, material, liens, retainage, and materials on hand has been zeroed out, so the total amount due this estimate is $113,894.15. So the action requested, number 1, to approve partial payment number 4 to 2EA Services for the commoner replacement project in the amount of $113,894.15.
Make a motion.
Second.
We're going to Alderman Mark, second by Jeff. That we.
Put your mic on.
I'm sorry. That we approve partial payment estimate number 4 to 2EA Services LLC for the commoner replacement at the main pump station project for the amount of $113,894.15. And I'll offer that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any other discussion? Okay. Second item.
Second item under the commoner project is item number 2, and that's change order number 2. 2 things that change order will do. 1, will add 25 days of contract time for them to complete the project, and an additional payment amount, $9,437.24. I sent you a copy of change order number 2. The justification for the additional cost is included in that change order document. The proposed change primarily consists of the unforeseen circumstances requiring the removal of sludge found below the wet well concrete bottom during floor modifications for the installation of the conduit. Contract time will be increased to accommodate the dewatering of the wet well and other wet weather conditions. So I'm asking you to consider change order number 2 again, which would increase contract time by 25 days and increase the cost of the project by $9,437.24.
So moved.
Offered by Jeff, second by Ms. Marks, that we approve change order number 2 under the contract with 2A Services LLC for the conduit replacement at the main pump station project. Same thing? Okay. In the amount of $9,437.24. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any discussion? Motion carried.
The next item I have for action begins on page 18. And that'll be item number 9, where you see the letter J in the left margin. The LCDBG fiscal year 2020-2021 project. I have a partial payment estimate presented on page 19. If you turn to that page where you see the letter J in the left margin. Partial payment estimate number 11 has that as of May 25th, the contract was 82% complete by time, 71% complete by cost. And partial payment number 11 has the total value of work done through that date as $1,289,164.12. The amount of $64,458.21 is being withheld for labor and material liens retainage. So the total amount due this estimate is $190,316.56. So I'd ask you to consider approval of partial payment estimate number 11 to NCMC LLC for the rehabilitation of the sewage collection system project in the amount of $190,316.56.
That's a move.
Offered by Ms. Marks, second by Ms. Chasson, to approve partial payment estimate number 11 to NCMC LLC for the rehabilitation of the sewer collection system project in the amount of $190,316.56. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And that concludes the action items that I have in utility committee.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And with nothing else coming before utility, we recess.
Thank you, sir. Recreation, Alderman Ashby.
Recreation Committee convenes. We have a quorum. First up will be Mr. Peter Kirsch from the Recreation Department.
Good afternoon. Our All-Star season has begun. Our teams visited Scott, Louisiana last weekend, and they will be in Crowley for tournaments for the next 2 weekends. Then they'll start their regional tournaments the weekend after and during the last week of June. We'll be hosting our biggest tournament of the year this year. We have 76 youth baseball and softball teams and 14 high school teams as of now for our high school tournament running at Miller Stadium, so we'll have a total of 90 teams in Crowley this weekend. It's going to be packed. So our high school summer league baseball has begun and will play through the month of June, and our American Legion baseball season has begun and will be playing through the month of June. And in fact, the Legion team has a doubleheader scheduled tonight. They're hosting a team from Houma and a team from Lafayette. 5 and 7 are scheduled first pitches for those games. I wanted to follow up with a phone call that I got about a slide at Myers Park. Brad and Byron and Steph might have remembered my report last year. We issued the PO on June 22nd of 2022 for that replacement. That's the twisty slide, the corkscrew slide. We're at the mercy of logistics. I'm being told, I spoke to the the vendor on that today. We're expecting it next week. So, just shy of a year. Just to give you perspective on the playground equipment in the city and all the parks, just that one replacement slide, which is one of 3 on that particular unit, costs the city $9,556 to replace. So just putting it out there again, as I have in the past, that equipment across the city is coming close to 20 years old. It's harder and harder to source parts. We need to develop a plan, as I have with the mayor, to address that in the near future. It's quite pricey. I've also reordered some replacement slides, swing pads, and baby swings for the parks. I'm hoping that'll be in by the end of this month, and we'll start replacing those as they need when they come in. The new doors for the Martin Luther King Center are in order. There's no date for installation yet, but we are being told that we should see materials start arriving next week for that project. I'd also like to thank Mr. Walter Andrews of the police jury and his $2,500 donation to the Martin Luther King Center. Those funds have been used to purchase a new pool table, foosball table, and ping pong table for the center, and that is scheduled to arrive before the end of the summer. Our soccer and flag football registration will begin on June 19th, and it will close August 13th. I tell you that that's 7 weeks. We're up against it again. It's year round now. So good problems to have. Other than that, we're right in the heart of it. Any questions?
Peter, I have a couple of questions about the 8th Street part that we had talked about, and thank you for following up on that so timely. The tennis courts, I know we talked about that, and we need some activity in that area. And just kind of throwing it out there for any upgrades that could do that. I think we talked about pickleball or something, but kind of getting that in the hopper. It's a hot ticket item, and we're getting a lot of interest for it. So if we could move that forward, it would be excellent.
I'm putting feelers out right now to come give me quotes to convert those tennis courts to pickleball courts.
Okay.
We did, and I didn't put it in my report, but I'll say it now. We did put 2 pickleball courts at the Rice Festival building, so the citizens can come and play. Tell them, if you get phone calls about pickleball, we have 2 courts at the Rice Festival building, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, unless we have a rental. They're more than welcome to come play.
Do we have pickleball coaches?
We do not. We did get a phone call from a group, interesting enough, from Youngsville. The Youngsville pickleball group has been locked out of their gym, so to speak, for the month of June because of a basketball clinic that's going on. So they called and asked, even though that they were not from Acadia Parish, could they still come and play? And we said yes, but you just got to promise to go buy lunch in Crowley's before you leave.
Well, I have to say, this last weekend, we saw a lot of the Little League players in their uniforms and families visiting the restaurants, so that's excellent. And we have a new place opening up this week, so we should be able to service everybody.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I meant to send you an email talking about the tennis courts. I had some people call last week as they were leaving, and they were asking if you could put a garbage can maybe somewhere in that lane. They threw some things away, but as they were going to their car, there was a lot of litter because they were not easily accessible. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Speaking of trash cans, does that come from y'all's department?
As far as?
Putting trash cans out of the parks?
No.
No, what department is that in?
Street.
Okay. Thank you.
When it's something that's been in place since before my time. Street handles all grounds and litter in the parks. We handle all sports and playground equipment in the parks.
Okay.
Chuck, we need to visit trash cans in the parks. They're old. Many of them have rusted and fallen apart. And so that's something that we're looking into. We have to, if we want to fight litter, we have to have a place to put it. And the trash cans are a big deal. But the street department does go around to empty those trash cans on a regular basis, there's supposed to be a schedule for them to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, because John Melvin, we hired somebody out to go cut the grass at Bicentennial, and they picked up 9 55-gallon bags of trash out there. And he told me if this is every week, the price is gonna have to change. But in his defense, there is only 1 or 2 trash cans out there, so.
Yes, that's one of the, let's say that's one of the more neglected parks in the city that we need to look at.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but talking about trash cans, that's administrative right there. You don't need anything from the council for that. And just part of everyday routine maintenance for the city.
Just money.
Well, I mean, the bus stop with you with that.
Yes, sir. Like Peter says, that slide ain't cheap and trash cans ain't cheap. But that is definitely something we're looking into.
You
We've
know
got
what
to
you might
replace.
want to check, I know in Lafayette, they just changed their waste management or whatever. Check with, the old suppliers, maybe they might want to do something with their trash cans. He's up to think, I mean, even over here in Crowley, we changed those, what was it, waste management or whatever? I didn't go to waste management.
Went to Waste Management from BFI.
Okay. Yeah, just check with them. You know, they might want to donate a couple
Yes.
hundred of them.
Yes.
One final thing, the water fountain in Newby Park, I know it's not working or rusted out. Is that a liability, or is it gonna be replaced, or can it be dismounted or something?
Right now, to dismount it, we've looked at dismounting or replacing all of them. I don't have the funds in my budget to do it. It's something that we'll have to address during budget.
Okay, it's on the wish list.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you, Peter, and it was nice playing pickleball with you in the air conditioning and heating.
I don't remember losing.
You only lose if you give up.
That's right. If you look, there's an action item on the agenda tonight to approve a partial payment request number 2 for the restrooms, and that's why I didn't put it in my report. The contractor has gone and drilled pylons, 24 inches in diameter, 12 feet deep. They reinforced it with rebar and then backfilled it all with concrete. There was a total of 32. 15 at Miller restrooms and 17 at the Hinskin side. The contractor told me it's gonna need a week or 2 to cure before they can start actually forming up the foundation, but we did get that done, and we got the partial payment application in for this month. Like I said, application number 2 for a total of $75,316.56. And I'll need, action to approve that.
So moved.
Okay, you have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next up, Mr. Mayor. All right. Recreation Committee closes.
Thank you, sir. Zoning and annexation, Alderman Reggie.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. We'll start off with Mr. Tinmaker. Nothing further, all right. Under action items, to amend section 414 of the Code of Ordinances to include a provision for animal excrement or feces removal, refer to section 10-234 of the Lafayette Consolidated Governments Ordinances for consideration and possible adoption. And I so move.
Second.
Yeah, okay. And any discussion? All in favor?
Yes, I have some discussion on that. That's, in the code of ordinance, is, find the actual ordinance.
Smart, check good, because that already should be an ordinance.
This is the copy of the wording you have is Lafayette's ordinance, right? Yes.
That's right, but that's not the ordinance.
We don't have one.
we don't have.
Years ago, we had, I remember, it was brought up, and what happened was, we had that problem. And I thought that we had done an ordinance with it. I could have sworn that.
We'll look into it if we
Right.
do have it, then we won't have to fix
Check
it.
with Tom, but I was thinking we did do that. Jeff, you don't remember that?
I remember Charles King came in with that.
Yeah,
He came in multiple times with that.
yeah, and it was
He
Pooper
said we were
Super,
gonna-
that's what
he
it was
said-
called, Pooper
Not,
Super.
not to make fun of it,
Yeah.
but the chief of police said we needed a poo-poo report to arrest people for not
But I knew it was brought up, I didn't know what the outcome was, I remember the outcome, but I remember it was brought up.
Didn't come back.
Sandy, you,
Yes, on the animal excrement removal, according to the Lafayette Consolidated Government Code of Ordinances, there's some good things in the different paragraphs, and I think if we don't have something already, there may be a way to craft this that better serves us. The one I have problems with is that whoever fails to comply with the provisions of this section shall feel guilty of a misdemeanor, and whoever is convicted of such shall be punished by a fine not to exceed $500 or imprisonment for a term of not exceeding 6 months or both, such fine and imprisonment. I'm not so sure that going around arresting, putting people in prison for their dogs pooping is a nice deal for our citizens. I don't think that that would solve the problem, but rather than go for the whole gamut of what's here, I think we need to consider and take what will work for us and that's enforceable.
Sure, I agree, and, that fine could be a minimum of $100 and even as is, but again, this is, something to look for.
Yeah, it doesn't promote good friendship among the citizens because everybody in Levy Park is gonna do time. That's
well, thankfully, one of the residents across the street from Levy Park
yeah, they do.
has purchased and keeps supplied bags for those who walk their dogs, because there are many people from throughout the city who actually come to Levy Park, and that's one of the things that they do is walk their dogs there. And so one of the residents across the street actually purchased a little box that has the bag, the rolls of bags in it, and he keeps it supplied and all, but.
We carry them on our leashes
Yes.
already, but it seems like, especially Levy Park, which is really popular because it's so nice, has become a dog walking park. Because we have people coming from the distance to enjoy the beauty of it, but they bring along their dogs and.
So, I'll say that, and Peter hasn't had this in his report yet this year, but we have been talking extensively of creating a dog park, an actual dog park within one of our parks. We also want to do a skate park, of course, in pickleball, so those are all things that are in the works. But we are looking at creating a dog park in one of our parks, which will absolutely excite many of our citizens, because that's one thing that a lot of people ask for, so.
Mayor,
And that'll hopefully help with this issue.
I think that's a great idea because it's inundated the park because of that, so the space sharing. I think this particular document, if it could be sent to committee to be recrafted or look to see what we already have with some compliance paragraphs for the.
Can I offer to send it out to all of you before the next month's meeting? I'll get with Tom and we'll fix it, that it's not, we're not sending anybody to jail for pooping dogs, but we'll fix it and we'll offer it, and if we could, it'll be easier to amend if it's not something that you approve it by
I'm
next week.
with
if you pass it.
that, if Mr. Reggie is good with.
But you wanna do like $100 fine to start and maybe double for your second, and then.
Yeah, let's do it
Double
in
again,
increments.
maybe
for
400.
That's what I was
For
thinking.
the habitual users.
Okay, so you want to go in the, I'll just offer to table it till next month.
Well, if you wanna pass it to the full council, then we can actually deal with it next week. If you table it, then it won't be done till next month, but if you wanna pass it, and then you can vote it down or vote for it,
With
still vote for it.
modifications of.
Once I give you the wording, the updated wording, if you wanna do that.
Okay, we'll just keep it the way it is with a stipulation, I guess.
With modifications.
Yes, remember, whatever you pass in committee doesn't really
So,
have any bearings.
yeah, so-
Next week's, you can vote against it next week, even though you voted for it this week.
That's fine. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any nays? All right, that'll pass. Number 2, to be considered by the zoning and plan, to be considered by the planning and zoning committee, the recommendation for approval of a re-subdivide as shown on the preliminary and plat showing lot 4B of Lemco subdivision number 1 into lots 4B and lots 4B-2 as shown situated on plat located in the city of Crowley, Acadia Parish. I so move. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Morton. Any discussion? It's the old Mr. Vogels that's on, Oddfellows. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, just a couple of minor corrections. It should read preliminary and final plat. And it should read, Lemco subdivision number 1 into lot 4B-1 and lot 4B-2.
Okay, I'll offer that with the changes. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any nays? And then under discussion items, I don't believe I have any. Is there anything else to come before zoning and planning? I will recess.
Thank you, sir. Public safety, Alderman Core.
Thank you, Mayor. Call to order the Public Safety Committee. All members are present. We begin with reports. Chief of Police Troy Adair.
In the month of May, we issued 79 daily citations, 43 traffic citations, a total of 122. We answered 929 total complaints for the month of May.
Any questions for Chief? I'd also like to,
I know you're busy, can you print that out next time, just so we can have it and refer back from month to month, just to see how things are moving? Thank you, Troy.
also like to report, I received the list of complaints from the police department for establishments holding liquor licenses during the period between January through May of this year. These reports are normally done every 6 months for us to review. And basically, what we've looked for in the past is open container violations, disturbances, fights, etc. With regard to bars, we had 2 that stood out the most, we've had the most complaints. And businesses with packaged liquor licenses, we've had 1 that had the most complaints. And Chief, could you have the patrol division perform more frequent visits at these locations to deter the illegal activity that's occurring?
Yes, say that again, I'm sorry.
I said, could you have your officers go out to these locations? And I don't know if you have a copy of the report.
Can you share those locations?
Sure. And you know, just be a little bit more presence of the officers there to kind of deter the illegal activities that's occurring. And my goal is to keep these establishments in compliance. and to avoid denying them when their applications come in at the end of the year, when we review them for their renewals, if you will, when they reapply for next year. Thank you. Fire Chief Louis Romero. Do it again? No. Okay. All right, and City Inspector Tony Duhon.
He did, you should all have his report in your packet for the fire chief. 3 hazardous conditions, 13 rescue EMS, 11 false alarms, 3 fires, 3 good intent calls, 2 service calls, total of 35 for an average response time of 2.50. Total calls for 23 is 201.
Thank you, Mayor. And did we get anything from Tony? I didn't see.
Yes. Animal control, 10 calls for dead animals, 22 calls for cats, 58 calls for dogs, 28 calls for animal traps, 18 dogs taken in, 10 dogs rehomed, and 17 cats taken in. All have been rehomed. 2 citations issued, 4 cats and 11 dogs are in the shelter currently. Code enforcement violations, 27 tall grass, 2 trash and rubbish, and 1 abandoned vehicle. 16 yards were cut by the city, 10 uninhabitable properties. West Hutchinson at 509 West 5th Street, 907 Hargrave, 1018 Southeastern, and 526 West 10th. The demo's finished. 1023 North Avenue B and 322 North Avenue D, demo is in progress. 706 West Hutchinson, demo permitted. And 313 Keller, due to demo on June 14th. Planning and Zoning Department has had multiple conversations with interested parties on projects and 1 re-subdivide. And he says contact for any further information needed.
Thank you, Mayor, for that.
I'll tell you this, just to update and let the public know, we have signed an agreement with a third-party inspector who has the licensing and certifications to do the inspections and all. Building Code Inspections LLC now does all our inspections in the city. There's something that in the discussion item that's coming up later that I'll talk a little more on that also. So.
Great. Okay, we move on to action items. To consider the resolution to retire the K-9 officer Breach and transfer custody to his longtime partner and handler, Officer Aaron Bertrand. And I so move.
Second.
Seconded by Doreen. Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Under the discussion items, a request for Mayor Chad Mosso to engage the city's attorney to draft an amendment to section 11 of the Code of Ordinances to include regulations for after-hours clubs. Regulations are to include prohibiting the possession or consumption of alcoholic beverages upon the premises between the hours of 2 a.m. and 8 a.m., and a minimum fine of $200 to be issued to the owner or operator and patrons in violation of the ordinance. Mayor, is that something that we can have the attorney work on?
Sure, I will send this over to both Tom and Mike, and we can see what the possibilities are, what the options are.
Currently, we have nothing that even designate what an after-hours club is, and they are. Mr. Reggie?
We had talked the other day, I was asking you if these particular after-hours clubs even have a city license, business license. If they don't have a business license, can't the police just go shut them down because they don't have a license?
An occupational license?
Correct.
Mayor, can you look into that too, please?
Absolutely, we'll make sure they have an occupational license.
These after-hour clubs, they're in the city limits, outside the city.
Inside.
So there's no ordinance on what time you have to close down if you're in the city?
They do not have a liquor license. They do not sell alcohol.
So it's BYOB type deal?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Next, sale of food items from temporary locations on private property by vendors. Cynthia brought this up, I think a couple of months ago, and as I've read under section 9.2 of the Code of Ordinances, 9.12 of the ordinances, such sales are prohibited except when the vendor has obtained a temporary food service permit from the state. When such permits have been obtained, section D of the ordinance requires the vendor to conspicuously display the permit and any other permits which may be required. Recognizing that these vendors operate during the weekends, we recommend that our police chief have officers perform routine compliance checks for temporary food service permits that are associated with these vendors. And again, those permits should be displayed conspicuously. And if there's anything else,
Do we have any idea if they're even getting them?
well, that's the thing. We wouldn't know because they've come from the state.
Okay, so it's not something issued.
Right.
So if someone gets a one-off permit to cook on the weekend, that wouldn't come from the city, that would still come from the state?
It's a temporary food service permit under their sanitary division. And it relates to public safety.
Now, we do have one that you see probably just about every weekend in front of, in the 900 block of North Parkinson in front of the Dollar General.
Correct.
That is considered a food truck. It is a licensed kitchen. It's not one of the tents that's set up without any kind of, she's got an occupational license, she's got insurance, she's got a kitchen, she's got a food kitchen certified by the state. So that's a little different than I think what we're talking about here. She has a certified kitchen. It's on wheels, but she has a certified kitchen.
Sure.
But I think what the biggest problem, and I'll tell you that I've had a business owner and the mayor of Esterwood contact me last week with these same questions. Because they have problems with, it's unfair to our restaurants who operate a brick and mortar store, or even these food trucks. They have the necessary equipment and insurance and licenses. They pay taxes. They do the whole 9 yards. And then they have to watch a tent set up in a parking lot selling burgers or sausage po' boys or whatever it may be, and who knows where they're from. They claim they're maybe a church or something here in town, but they could be from some other city who's coming in and selling a few burgers, and then they're going, collecting some cash, and they're going. And it's unfair to our restaurants who I had a daycare who called me a couple of months ago, concerned and upset, just as an example of what some of these businesses have to pay to operate as a legal business. And this daycare called me, and she was upset or confused as to why she had to pay more property taxes. And when I saw the bill that she got, it's actually inventory tax. And the problem is she's never had to pay for that. Well, because she just registered her daycare last year as an actual business. So now that you have an actual business, you have to pay inventory tax, which it says it's property taxes, and those of you who own a business know what I'm talking about, and it's statewide. It is not a city thing. But she was confused as to why she never got it before. I said, well, you never operated a legitimate business before. So that's all parts of operating a business that our local restaurants have to incur these costs. And it's hard to compete with a tent set up in a parking lot selling burgers every weekend.
Sure, Mayor. And equally important, my concern is public safety, food handling, you know, how this food is being handled, this, you know, they can, result in many people being ill with one bad batch of food that they're serving. So, anyway, we can look into that if you don't mind.
Step, you might remember, we've been through all of this time and time again, and it looks to me like we did address this. They had to be certified by the Board of Health. They had to go in and be a legal, they're paying their license, they're paying their taxes, they've been inspected, you know, it was pretty strict. So all of these barbecue pits they roll up, it was enforcement. I hate to point to the chief, but we didn't have good enforcement back in those days. Remember, Steph, we were saying, we pretty well got an ordinance, but we just don't enforce it, you know? Because people would pop up on Eastern Avenue, they did that a lot. And it was to catch them, you know? But, pretty much, yeah.
And Jeff, you know, typically, this is a code enforcement, you know.
That's what it was.
I'm not really the police department, but the problem is our code enforcement officer doesn't work on the weekends.
Yes.
Our police department.
That's the way back in the day, KP would say, we have code, we have no enforcement. You know, that's it, we gotta get enforcement, so.
Right.
Like, I think it's there, maybe you can look into it, I think it's there, but we have to enforce it.
Well, we can enforce some of those code violations too, you know, some of them get real tricky when you're dealing with buildings and stuff like that, but, you know, if it's pretty plain, you know, we can have.
Yeah, permits have to be displayed conspicuously. They should have, just like we have to have our business occupational license, and so forth.
Yeah, they're talking about particularly the fundraisers that are on the side of the roads, mostly on the side of Parkinson, just about every weekend. Basically, it would take the police department to check on these tents that are set up on the weekends, because, you know, normal business hours is not during the week, on the weekend. So, if you could, on a Saturday or Sunday, and you see a tent or some kind of fundraising going on, some kind of cooking going on, if you can check on them, have the officer stop by and ask them for their state Board of Health permit to be able to do that.
Yeah, we don't mind doing that, especially with the raise coming, we should be at full staff, hopefully not too much longer, so, this is all stuff, you know, we can do.
Thank you.
One quick question. Even though they have to go through the state to get this permit, we can't enforce them getting a temporary permit or temporary permit from the city, because the state doesn't know who Joe Bob's Barbecue Hut is, but if you have to go through Crowley where they're actually putting the tent, whoever's in that department actually know if they're a non-denomination, if they're a, nonprofit organization or anything of that sort. It can be monitored a little bit better than it coming from the state.
Yeah, in the case of the kitchen, the full state kitchen that I was talking about, something like that, she has an occupational license, so we can check that too. But even though the city gives them the okay to sell and do the food, they still must have the state health board license.
Right.
And that's the easiest to look for, because that's gonna be printed on a piece of paper and they need to have it this week.
Steph?
Okay. There's sometimes it is what it is, okay? What about the churches? Okay, I don't wanna see no church get shut down trying to raise a little money for their whatever event. Okay? If I remember, Jeff, you brought it up and it came back to me. The problem that we had was private property. That was the problem. because I'm just using a business, allow them to go on allow them to go on their property. They're the one taking the risk. And I don't know if we have any way of dealing with that, because private property is private property. Okay? Just case in point, I'm just using one that I know that has a lot of business or routes. Okay?
There were certain exemptions from what I remember, the churches were that, but you had one place on Eastern that they claimed to be a church, and they really, it was just open on the weekend to sell barbecue.
Right.
And they really, it wasn't much in the church. You know?
Yeah, I don't think we have a big problem with the churches that I had plate lunches from St. Teresa's this weekend,
Well, yeah.
but it was at the church. You know, the
Right,
churches,
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
they have the ability for the churches to do that.
No, we're talking about churches using downtown. That's what I'm telling you.
I agree with you, because at Park Street, I let the churches come, but I know that they're a church.
Right.
So it's kind of like your business owner monitoring who they're letting come in, you know?
Exactly.
And I don't want to see a church not be able to do that either.
Well, that's where the cross came in. Okay, because, I mean, you got, what's good for the gander is good for the goose, or vice versa, however you want to put it.
Well, you had the churches, and you also had the school board could do it.
That's another one, okay.
It's a school, so.
Right. So, I mean, we have to tread carefully how we do this, but at the same token, let's not take away the ability for nonprofits, legitimate nonprofits,
Right.
to try and make them money.
I think the way you fix that is you should just have whatever the nonprofit is, go into City Hall the week before. The city can give them a temporary for the weekend pass, because they've already vetted them, and you don't have to worry about it. If the police decide to show up to check it, it's got the city.
That's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and that's all I was trying to do is get the people that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing out of there. And if they do have like you were saying, if they do have it's kind of the same thing with the after hours club. If they don't have their legitimate barbecue place or whatever, they don't have an occupational license, they could just shut them down and that's over with.
And Steph, I agree with you with, the churches and schools and people trying to raise money. I guess what I'm concerned about is someone just from out of town coming up, setting up shop, selling food, leave, people get sick, okay, where'd you buy? Well, they were set up there, where's the paperwork? I think, like Sam was indicating, if they would have something from the city, at least we would have documentation of who was selling the food and how to contact them if something illness resulted.
I agree with you, I'm just saying, that's.
Yeah, no, there's all
definitely
good
not-
points.
Let's find a way to circumvent, what they're trying to do illegally and bring it to the legal side. That's the only thing. I just don't want them to not be able to raise money, because sometimes you gotta go out there and get it.
Thank you, Steph.
So not related to food, but just soliciting. I know I called you a few weeks ago with a group of people at the corner of Oddfellows and Parkinson. I've seen those same people out there 3 times. Do you need some type of license to do that? Can you just go hang out on a street corner with a jar?
I don't think that they can do that on that state highway.
No, they
Yes.
can't. I mean, they do it, but it's not.
Right.
So Troy, we'll talk later about that, because I've seen them 3 times.
And we need to look, we can look into that. I think there's actually there may even be a state law that says that, and it exempts fire departments. There's something that exempts fire departments, whether it's the cooking or the picking up money on the corner. And I'm pretty certain, I remember something about it, but I think it's a state law. But yeah, that's a state highway, so I don't think they're supposed to do it.
No,
They're very smart because they're out there at 5 o'clock or at noon. They're out there at very busy times. So it definitely is a safety issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had responded and caught one.
If a police car shows up, they're gone. It's true, because the state said the liability was that someone get killed at an intersection. They didn't want it, so the law said you can't do it.
sometimes with the permit, it comes with all things. Yeah. Item number 3, to discuss neighbor complaints about trash at 1013 South Avenue M, and we have pictures that are included in our package.
So I'll be happy to kind of explain some of this. This is something that actually started well before I got into office. I actually sent a text message out to Brad, Mr. Crater, Clint Crater, because he was public, that was his, on the council then, and Sammy Reggie, because he was on the council in that area also, with this complaint, and it had, so the process started back then, actually. You three guys started back then, and believe it or not, we're still dealing with it today. The pictures you see are actually, if you notice, there's 2 different structures in the background of the trash, or junk, or what the owner of such considers treasure. This property has 2 separate owners. One is Jason Montz, and the other is a Huff Power. I can't remember the first name. We had to go out there, Chief Abear went out there and moved the camper that you see in the pictures. Has no axles. It is in very bad condition, and that camper was pushed over to the side because our wrecker services don't want to deal with it because of who it belongs to, and I'll explain that in a second also. So it was moved over to the side to get off of the roadway so that they could actually pave the roadway. Nothing has changed since then. He has been cited more than once. He has been to this courtroom. I actually called and sent pictures to the judge personally. The judge gave him 10 days or 20 days, I don't remember exactly how many, to clean it up. That obviously did not happen. Tony Duyong was sitting in this chair to testify during his court, Mr. Montz's court date. And when Mr. Montz spoke up and said, well, all of that stuff is worth something to me, that changed the whole outcome of the situation. So speaking with both Tom and Mike Landry, I also called the judge, and I asked the judge, I said, so you gave him this many days, and this is the date that he has until to clean it up. Then what happens if he doesn't clean it up? Because I said it's worse than it was. There's more stuff. She said, well, then he's in contempt of court. I said, so, okay. Can I go over there with a Acadia Parish Police Jury grappler truck, pick up everything on city right-of-way and haul it to Egan? Oh, no, Chad, you can't get rid of his stuff. You have to store it and charge him storage. Now, you see what's in these pictures. I don't know what the heck we're going to store or where we're going to store it, but you see what's in the pictures. Tom, I can show you emails, and I'll be happy to forward the emails to you, says that the courts have in the past, and seems like that's probably what would happen again, would order the city to pay damages for this, what we consider junk, and what the neighbors in this neighborhood consider junk. Mike Landry is the one that's working on this right now. He's working with Jack and trying to find a solution for it. I'll tell you that when Mr. Montz goes to court, He considers himself a sovereign citizen. He files that he knows the system very well. He knows, and he does not care if he has to go to jail. He'll spend time in jail. He gets food, he gets fed and everything over there, and he gets out, and on his way from jail, on his way back home, he picks up some more trash and brings it with him. He fills out the paperwork he needs to be a pauper, and he doesn't pay any court costs. He doesn't pay any fines, and nothing, he don't pay for anything. He's already sued the city for some property that was demolished, which, by the way, some more property, the property on Ross is coming up next week. He has acquired this property on South M, the one on Ross, and the one that was demolished with the last council, all from the same property owner who's getting rid of most of his properties. It's tough to deal with without just writing a check to him and saying, here's the money for your junk that's worth something. We're going to pick it up and clean it up. The entire yard looks like that, by the way. I was talking with Mike, and Mike said, actually just a couple of days ago, and Mike said that we can't write him again for the same thing, that we gotta go through the court system with that. The code that he was written for, I don't agree with. And so I got with Tony, and when we write him again, it will be for a different charge, a different code that is spelled out in that in the ordinance. It's a tough situation dealing with this guy, and can become very costly. So that's why I'm trying to deal with it as the best we can right now, but I promise you it has not been overlooked. We have not forgotten about it. Most of these pictures are actually from me. The two you see with the side view mirror in the picture are from the residents that have wanted to bring this. She contacted me and asked me what would be the best time to attend the meeting, and I told her this meeting would be the best. She'd have the most opportunity to speak and talk to the council and ask questions and get questions answered. Unfortunately, our committee meetings are at 4 p.m. I would like to move them back to 6 to allow more citizens. That's something that we need to look at. So she wasn't able to make it. I asked her to email me the pictures. I had her 2 pictures and included the pictures that I had already taken. By the way, nothing has changed. My pictures are probably a month or so old. Nothing has changed except maybe more junk. And I told her that I would give a copy to each council member and that we would definitely discuss it, and that we haven't forgotten about her, but it's a really tough situation that we're dealing with this particular citizen.
And Mayor, you know, since this is on public property, owned by the citizens of this city, effectively, this is indicating to me that this individual, if he runs out of room in front of his house on public property, he can go anywhere he wants in the city and dump more material, and there's nothing the city can do.
I agree with you, but I'm telling you, I asked the judge who is going to give us the orders if I go over there with the parish and pick it all up and haul it to the parish, to Egan, which is what I wanted to do from day one. That the judge said we cannot do that. That is his stuff. We have to store it and charge him storage. That is unbelievable. The judge said we cannot throw away his stuff.
And I'm no lawyer by any means, but you know, we have state law about the banquet, the area between your property line and the street, that mandates.
The property owner has to keep it up.
Keep it up.
That's right.
Is there a certain amount of time you have to store it?
It's a good question.
And after 90 days of being.
I'll be happy to ask her that. I'll call her tomorrow and ask her.
And
How long do I have to store it?
And also, would like to know, is it the value to the individual?
Yes.
Or the value of that on the market to sell? Because,
Good question.
something valuable to him may be, extremely.
Correct. And I'll tell you,
If you went to sell it.
Right.
So I think that's for damages purposes, if we pick that up and brought to the dump after we inventoried it and documented what it was.
Oh,
Okay,
gosh.
where's the argument?
I know. I don't mean to laugh at that, but can you imagine documenting that? Oh my, yeah.
No, just have the evidence.
I have a question. What if you did store it on some of the city property? Is he gonna pay what we charge? And if he doesn't pay, then
That's what I'm asking.
Well, that's the other question is, he won't be able to pay, he won't be able to pay that rental, that storage fee, so then, so there's another hurdle to pass, so,
It might be.
Brett, I think,
I'm sorry, Mr. Hughes. State your name and,
Rich Hughes, and the other neighbors, they weren't able to come here today because their mother died. And they were gonna show up, so they asked me to say a few words to them.
and I told this lady, I said, ask all the neighbors to come, maybe.
They're really fed up, having to the point where they've got snakes, rats, mice, you name varmints coming out, it's a health hazard. And these people are dealing with this stuff, and they shouldn't have to deal with it. One of their points that they wanted to make was that with no consequences, there's consequences. And here these people are having to live with this day in and day out, with snakes and rats and everything else coming across there, let alone the point that you made was it gets so full, it's flowing over onto their property. And they're at their wit's end. And, there are city ordinances against certain things like this. And these people are so fed up, they thought that this council was going to correct these situations. And here they are 6 months later, and it's the same story they keep on hearing for the past few years now. And they've got a great complaint. How would any of you like to live next door to this? You wouldn't put up with it.
I'll tell you this, that's exactly what I told the judge when she told me that I couldn't throw his stuff away.
Right, so
There are ordinances, and the answer I got from the city attorney was solidified by the answer I got from the city judge, that I can't go and clean up, especially, or at least, city right-of-way, because it's his stuff, and we have to store it.
Okay, so.
That's ridiculous
So
to me.
for that RV that's sitting out in front, there are state ordinances, state statutes, actually, I think it's within our city ordinances about abandoned and junk vehicles. And they become public property once they've been given proper
Correct.
notice. That thing can get removed immediately.
I explained that point also.
It's in the ordinance.
The record services do not want to deal with it because he will sue. And they don't want to deal, they have nothing. If they latch on to that camper, they have nothing. It's worth zero. It's an expense to the record services. We can't get our record services to latch on to it. They don't want to deal with it because of who owns it.
But the ordinance in the state statute says after a certain period of time, I think it's 10 days, that it becomes public property. It's no longer his property. He can't sue you. You've gone through all the proper procedures and given the proper notices and everything, and now it is now public property. It's not his property anymore. And the state has addressed that, and Brett, Chad, you know that I've been working on this and trying to get an Attorney General's opinion on it. Within the state statute, it says that all abandoned vehicles, if their value isn't, if you have to spend more money to repair it than the value of the vehicle, then it's considered junk. And after 10 days' notice, it is now public property if the person doesn't do anything with it. They didn't address it in the statute for junk. So now that's what he's trying to hang his hat on, okay? There's two ways to skin the cat. You can send someone in there and actually do an appraisal on each individual thing. A refrigerator that there's no doors on it, how much is that worth, you know? You know, in an auction. Get an auction guy to come down there and you put values on it. Or the other way to skin the cat is through the health department. There's a health violation that's going on there that somebody's gonna get hurt.
That was another point that was
You
brought
know,
up a couple of days ago.
but for the judge and the attorneys to be scared of getting sued, citizens, you know, that's what we pay taxes for. You know, let them take you to court. What's it gonna cost? How much could he possibly put a value to that stuff when you're sitting there with pictures in front of a judge, he's suing for it, and here's you've got a written estimate from someone who's legitimate that says this stuff's worth $200, or it's not worth anything. You know, at least you got an argument, and then a judge is gonna look at it with the health department coming in behind him and say, you don't have a lawsuit.
I wish you were the judge.
Well,
I wish you were the judge and the attorney, that way we could get through this and just go through the lawsuit and pay for it, be done for it.
Chad, you know, and I have been down this road, you know, many times we've talked about this situation. And, I mean, these are friends of mine, so that's the reason why I'm up here right now. But to do nothing, it just keeps on going on forever. And they've lost confidence within our city council and everyone, because nothing gets done.
So I'll tell you this, there's been much more than nothing being done. We are trying to get through the red tape, okay?
I've explained this to them.
And there's more than nothing being done, and we didn't just turn our heads.
No, I've explained that.
Well, I haven't, anyway.
I have explained that to them, but in their mind, nothing's getting done, because not one thing's been removed, more stuff keeps getting piled up.
And I don't blame them for
You
thinking
know,
that.
and I would feel the same way.
Myself.
Thank you.
I guess you.
Does need room to put more stuff.
Well, that's the other
Please state your name.
Clint Prater, 20 Bayou Oaks Drive, Crowley. So litter and blight is something that we dealt with for 4 years going on. I can tell you now, I'm not here to bash or blame anybody, prior administration, present administration, whatever. I'm just here to give you some facts of what I've had to deal with and what the prior council has had to deal with and some of the things that we did. So if you ever get a chance, when you go to LMA, and there's a guy named Neil Irwin, he's probably the foremost authority on litter and blight in the state of Louisiana. I think he's from Shreveport, Louisiana. He has excellent seminars. You need to go to that and ask him some questions, because Crowley's not unique. Every city in the country is dealing with litter and blight, but this guy knows what he's doing, and he knows how to deal with it. And I think that probably the city would be best served by getting an attorney or someone that is familiar with litter and blight, that knows the laws, that can argue the case and get things done. I can tell you, Kim and I, back when we first started, Kim Stringfeld and I, went to one of the seminars, and we came back all pumped up. And we, you know, West Monroe is doing this, so we met with 3 people in the administration, I'm not gonna say any names, and we had the city of West Monroe's litter and blight ordinance. And we pushed it to them and said, we'd like to implement this for the city of Crowley. And one of those people actually pushed that paper back towards me and said, Clint, you have to be careful going after these people, because it could be politically damaging to you. Now, at the time, it really ticked me off, but I guess he was right after all. But anyway, that's beyond the point. I think, look, 3 times I've rode my district. So first time, Tori and I, my wife and I, rode my district, and we made a list of every blighted property. I went down every street, back and forth, and we made a list and turned it in to the court enforcement. Not too long after that, Sammy and Reggie and I rode every street in my district, made another list, and prioritized the blighted properties, and turned it in to the code enforcement officer. Probably a year later, CAB was formed, and Emily Stone approached me and said, would you ride with me in your district and help me make a list of all the blighted properties. So again, 3 times we made the list, I made the list of blighted properties in my area. And I can guarantee you now, if I go back and I write those same streets, a lot of those same properties are still there after 4 years and nothing has been done. In April of 2021, we finally got an ordinance number, I have it with me, as a matter of fact, 1516, that said that the city of Crowley was gonna appoint a hearing officer or judge to expedite the process, because it's a long process. The police jury liked it so much that they implemented the same process. They took our ordinance and they said, wow, that's a great idea, I guess, and they did. And it took them like 6 months to get it done, and they have a hearing officer, and they have everything. The city of Crowley could piggyback on their hearing officer, and we could actually go and use the same hearing officer that they have, and it would expedite this process. But I'm not sure how the city council, and I don't know how you would feel about it, but I know how I felt about it. We went through this process of having the meetings, the public meetings, everything. The ordinance was voted on, and we passed the ordinance. Okay, ordinance is law, right? It has never been implemented. Over 2 years, and it has never been implemented. We still don't have it. Now, my question to the mayor now is, what are your plans for ordinance number 1516? Are you planning on having a hearing officer, or is this ordinance going to be ignored for another ever and ever? I really think that it's time to start addressing this problem seriously and stop worrying about it being politically damaging to us, because people are suffering. The city is suffering. There's houses in South Crowley, East Crowley, West Crowley, North Crowley that people shouldn't have to live. This is just one example. There's so many. I saw when I was campaigning how many properties, and I just couldn't believe that they had people living next to these places like this one. And this is probably maybe not the worst one. I mean, there's some serious blighted properties in Crowley, and it needs to be addressed. It's time. And does that mean employing a hearing officer? Does that mean employing an attorney that is familiar with blight and litter and that can expedite the process? I don't know the answer, but I think it would really do you good if you go to LMA and you sit in Neil Irwin's conference and ask those questions and see what he has to say, because I'm telling you, this guy, he's dealt with everything. He knows. I mean, he's dealt with it all over the state. So that's my take on it. I'm not here to bash anybody, but please, please, please try and get something done. And if you'd like a copy of the ordinance that we passed, I do have a couple of copies of it. And I'd be glad to give them to you. I know, Steph and Byron and Sammy and Brad, we were all for this, and nothing ever happened. So I was under the impression that an ordinance was law and had to be done. April 2021, still not done. So anyway, thank you for listening.
You did say,
If I can help you in any way.
you did say Neil Irwin?
Neil Irwin. He's out of Shreveport. But if you go to LMA, Chuck, and he's usually there, or he has representatives there, and it's well worth your time sitting in there for an hour not nearly long enough for all the questions you'll have. Believe me, he's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Good luck to y'all.
Mr. Krieger, I'm glad you asked that question, because, and that's something that I wanted to bring up during this discussion. With trying not to blame anyone, I'll tell you that I met last week, week before last, actually, I think now. Anyway, either last week or week before last, I lose track of time. But with CAP, I requested that they give me a list of 100 properties right now. Give me a list of 100 properties in this city that are what they consider A5. No questions asked. It's got to go. It can't be repaired. Not because there are people, as you well know, that are concerned, well, I live in a house that's not painted and it's not pretty. That's not a blighted property. And it's important that people understand that. What we're talking about a blighted property is definitely not someone who is, doesn't have the money to paint their house and make it pretty. That's not blight. But I asked for 100 properties. Since I signed the agreement with Building Code Inspections LLC, he is going to take that list, a certified inspector, licensed with all the certifications needed. He's going to go out to eat. When he comes to Crowley, he's going to spend a full day here. There's actually a grant, LCDBG grant that's available right now, but we can't apply for it because we already have some LCDBG funds with the sewer department. We're trying to get in position right now so that we have a list, because there's a grant to pay for the demolition of these properties. But they have to be ready, they have to have gone through the process and be ready to be demoed. So, my opinion with this ordinance, I don't have a problem with the ordinance, I don't have a problem with getting the blight judge and all of that stuff. But I truly believe that that was a way that the previous council felt, because they met a roadblock. Every time they tried to get something done with blight, they met a roadblock and was not able to bring it before the council and get it done. So that was an opportunity to try and move it outside of council and get it done, and it still didn't happen. I don't think, I know it's an ordinance, and again, I'll be happy to enact it. I want to try and push these 100 properties through. I wish I would have been here 2-3 years ago to be able to help push that through, because I think the previous council, and I'm certain this council, is not going to be concerned about, and myself included, is not going to be concerned about getting a vote in 4 years because we demolished some properties that need to be demolished. I'm not worried about that. If I don't get elected in 4 years because I brought 100 properties to this council, by the way, we're going to have a special council meeting to deal with just blight. We're not going to come in the regular council meeting, not to prolong it for hours. We're going to have a special council meeting for just blight. Cooney is going to go to these properties. He's going to take pictures. He's going to have a report. He's going to have a packet for each one of these properties. He's going to have a copy for each council member. We're going to have a council meeting, a special council meeting, and we're going to push these properties through. I don't want to wait a year to start demolishing them, waiting on this grant. That would be most cost effective for not just the city, but the property owners also. So we're going to start demolishing some of these properties, but I'm also trying to get into place, and we passed a resolution for it, that the city actually goes out and does the work. Just like Spanky does in Church Point. The city has an excavator. We've got the resolution for the intergovernmental agreement with the police jury. If the city's doing the work, the police jury will bring the container. I've already got with the police jury for that. Yes, it's less expensive on the city, but that's less expenses we hand down to the property owner, who in most cases doesn't have the money to demo the house. And they don't have the money to fix it, which is why it's in the condition it's in. So I'm trying to go in a route that, because that's another stigma of this process, is the city's trying to take my property. And the city doesn't want anybody's property. We just want those properties to go back into the market to be able to have a house built on it, have a livable space for families to live in our city. So I promise you, and look, I would love to sit down with you and hear and see the things that you've done and you've studied with blight and any topic, to be honest with you. But I promise you, this is coming up, and this week, I'm hopeful that I get that, that email with 100 properties, 100 blighted properties. And I think that we can do it with this council and myself. Michael Landry is going to be handling all the blight. Tom is not dealing with any blight. So Michael Landry is going to be dealing with all the blight now. And I really think that this council can push through these blighted properties, demand that they're demolished, and make it happen without that court. I don't think any of these guys are worried about a vote because they tore down a house. I think we'll all get extra votes if we do tear down these houses, to be honest with you. Yes, sir.
Okay. And let me just explain the reasoning behind the litter and blight court. It's to expedite the process. So if you keep going through the council, like you're saying, first thing you're gonna have to do, you're gonna have to go through the council, you're gonna have to have a public hearing, and then Tony's gonna tell you it's gonna be at least 6 months of process before it can get done. If you go through the blight court, that whatever that hearing officer says at that time, he can say 14 days and you can tear it down. It expedites the process is what it does. It doesn't get it bogged down in council. It doesn't get it bogged down in code enforcement. As soon as that hearing officer hears it, he has the information, or she has the information, they rule on it and say, 14 days, it's done. It's a done deal. It doesn't have to come before the council. It doesn't have to go through all the process. It doesn't have to take so long. It's to expedite the process and get it out of the council's hands and get it going, get it done expeditiously. And that was the whole point of us coming up with the code enforcement, or the code enforcement blight court, hearing officer, judge, whatever you want to call it. It was to expedite the process, because the first thing you're going to hear, if Tony DeYoung was here, he would say it's a process. It takes time. You have to do this, do that. Well, guess what? When you go through a hearing officer, whatever he says or she says, it's a done deal. 14 days, 2 weeks. It's something that's really, really bad, that's a health hazard, that the police chief and the fire chief and the health department says it needs to go. That's tomorrow. It was done with the church. It doesn't take 6 months to do it. It can be done very quickly. But if you have somebody that's afraid to get sued, or afraid that somebody's going to do something, then it'll take forever.
So I think, unless I don't understand it, and believe me, there's a lot I'm still learning. It still has to go through the process of finding the owners, notifying them. All of that stuff you have to notify the owners that it's blighted and it's going to this court, okay? We just did one on Keller, a trailer house on Keller. It came to this council, the council gave it, I think, 30 days to be torn down. There's no discussion with Tony DeYoung at that point. It came here, it went for the public hearing, the lady stood up there and said they bought paint for the trailer, and the trailer is a 70-something model and can't even hook electricity to it. The council ruled it as being demolished in 30 days. Nothing happened. They are living in the trailer. The only reason that trailer is not torn down today is because they're living in it. So then we had to evict them. After the 30 days, we had to evict them out of their own trailer because it's not livable. The reason the 14th is the date that it's going to be torn down is because that's when the construction company can get to it. Again, my understanding is it still has to go through the legal process. You still have to notify the property owners. You can't just choose this property and say this is going to blight court, and next week the blight judge says nobody's here to talk on it. It's demolished. You have to notify the property owners and all the or try to notify all the family members. And then once that's done, then it comes here for a public hearing, and then the council says you have 5 days, you have 15 days, you have 30 days. That's my understanding of it. So if this council is willing to say you have 30 days or 20 days and not give them 60 days or 90 days, Because these 100 properties I'm talking about, they've had 30 years to do something and nothing's been done. Is it not true that the property owners still have to be notified, even though it goes to this blight court?
When you read the ordinance, it has it in the ordinance, it's very well spelled out, because a lot of the problems that you're gonna have is that when you go and try and find these property owners, you're not gonna find them. So what happens is, there will be a notice put on that structure. First, they'll send out a registered letter, and it comes back, nobody answered. Put a notice on the building, I think it's 2-3 days, it's in the ordinance, you don't have very much time. That serves as notification that that property owner has been notified, and at that point, the property can be demolished. And it's just to expedite the process, but once you read the ordinance, you'll understand, it's in there, spelled out in there, that's how things are done, and that's how it will be taken care of. So, anyway, the ordinance is there.
Are you sure you want to walk in here right now, Mike?
Alright, so once you read the ordinance, maybe next week y'all can discuss it, but once you get a chance to read the ordinance and see if you want to implement it, if not, then I guess you have to have another public hearing to say, let's get rid of this ordinance, because it's a law, it's an ordinance, it's supposed to be followed. Over 2 years now, it hasn't been addressed, and I don't know how that can possibly happen, because if you have a public hearing and you have an ordinance to put up a stop sign, you don't have over 2 years just to ignore it because somebody doesn't want it done. The council voted on it, you're the representative of your citizens, citizens have their voice in you, it was done properly, and it was just ignored. And so, anyway, it's very frustrating to me. Good luck to y'all. Got any questions, please come.
I'll be honest with you, I don't wanna do away with it, because, we won't always be here, and I truly think that we can push these properties through without that process, in an expedited way. But I also wanna look at the future, and we may need to actually enact that before we get out of office. Just being totally honest, open and in the public, camera and all, because you don't know what's coming next. And so I really want to try it this way. I want these council members to be responsible, and I want to be held responsible. The people are asking us to clean up these properties. I don't want to give that to a judge to do. I want to make that choice because the people ask me to do it. So I want to put the hammer down and say, this property has to be demolished. There's no questions about it. You've got 15 days, you've got 20 days, you've got 30 days, whatever it may be. If it's not done, the city's going to come in and do it. I don't want a judge to be responsible for that. I want to make that decision. And if I don't get voted in 4 years again because of that, then so be it. But I don't want to be somebody who says, oh, well, I don't want to make that decision in case I don't get voted on. I'm going to push that to somebody else. And that's why I want to try and make it happen right here in this room with the people that the people voted into office.
Good luck, is all I can tell you, because there was a lot of thought put into this ordinance, and the intent was not to take it away from anybody. The intent was to expedite the process and get things done, because there's certain individuals in this city, and we all know who they are, that are very, very protected, and it seems like
Not anymore.
nothing happened. So not anymore. Hope you're right.
I promise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gritter. All right, any other business to come before the public safety?
Can I get another into that, please?
Well, let's give them 2 minutes, because we gotta move forward.
First of all, that ordinance, if you did want to enact it, the police jury and attorney would be on board for it.
Yes, I've already spoken to him. Yes.
And secondly, the emergency condemnations might be really good to use, and it's for imminent danger to the neighborhood. And so if you're gonna go down the route of not using that, or even using a hearing officer, using that tool allows you to, if it's determined that the health department or the fire department or the police department says it's imminent danger to the neighborhood, it's a 30-day notice. You slap it on the building, that's considered notification to the homeowner or to the attorney that's on, representing the family or whatever. So a lot of those houses can be used under the Emergency Condemnation Act. The other part is if you're gonna go down this route too, we know the games that they play when it comes to building permits, and that's why I wanted to see a separate building permit for condemned houses, because the question comes up, is it 50%? Cooney might say 50% damage or 60%, and the people have the constitutional right to want to repair their house. Well, changing the building permit and changing the ordinance for that to make it hold their feet to the fire, make deadlines, and Chad, you have a copy of the rewritten ordinance for that. I really hope you take a look at it closer, because it'll solve a lot of problems. It'll make people happy. If they're going to repair it, they got to repair it in 6 months or two to rip it down. With our ordinances right now, our building permit and everything doesn't allow for that. And if you go over there and put a nail in a wall, and then we, it can get moved on for another 6 months and another 6 months, and we saw what happened at the warehouse down there, So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Brad, real quick, if you want, Mike is here, and I've asked him if he would be willing to talk about the property on South Elm and where we're at with it and what the possibilities are. So if you want to give Mike a second.
Sure, hold on a second.
It doesn't matter, you can sit here or.
I'm kind of loud. Can y'all hear me?
Go ahead, go ahead.
All right.
Mike, before you say anything, Chad, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm hearing all this about this court and all this. I thought we had hired all these people.
The process,
What happened?
the ordinance was passed.
The administrative hearing judge wasn't appointed.
Unfortunately, none of that was done.
You mean to tell me we went through months?
Yes, sir. Yes.
2 years?
None of that was done.
All right, I'm good.
All right. So on the, back to the South Avenue with all the trash, Michael, update us a little bit on what we've got there.
So with the Jason Mount situation, it's a little bit unusual and it's a little bit tricky. It's not so much a condemnation, it's more of a nuisance property issue. And there's several issues that kind of are floating around with regards to it. One is that there are actually two separate properties where the junk, I'll call it junk, I don't think Mr. Monks calls it junk, but there are two separate properties where this stuff is being accumulated and being stored. He was cited with regards to one of those properties, but not the other. And my understanding is that once he was cited, they went to court over that, he was ordered to remove it. To one degree or another, he just kind of skidded it over across the property line to the other property. That being the case, and to the extent that that's done, he would have complied with the judge's order. If he hasn't done that, and we're kind of investigating that, then the next step would be to actually go to the judge and hold him in contempt of court and ask the judge for a remedy. You can't continually cite people over the same thing unless it's a separate offense. So, if you cite someone, if I walk up here and slap somebody in the face, that's a battery. If I go to court and you don't like the result I get, you can't charge me again for the same thing, okay, unless I slap you again. And that's kind of the situation we have here with the violation that he went to court on. He's already gone to court on one, so the remedy is not necessarily to cite him again for that same thing. It's to go back to the judge and tell her that, look, he has not complied with the court's order, and have the court issue a contempt charge against him, at which point he can be, it's up to the judge's discretion, but he can be jailed, he can be fined, and what we would really like the court to do is to, at that point, because he has not complied with the court's order, we would hope that the judge would allow us to go in and remove the stuff. The second thing is, like I said, there's two separate properties, so we're in the process now of actually citing him on the second property, so that we can get another court proceeding going and then pursue that. And then we're also gonna kind of pursue some civil remedies as well in the hopes that we can get this taken care of. It's an unusual issue, and, you know, Mr. Mons isn't stupid. He knows how to play the system and play the game, and he's honestly played it fairly well. And, you know, so you have to dot your i's and cross your t's. As you should do with everyone in every one of these situations. But that's our intent, and I think that's how we're gonna pursue it moving forward, is to pursue the contempt angle on the property that he has gone to court for, to the extent that he hasn't complied with the judge's order. And then on the other property, see if we can cite the owner of that property. He actually doesn't own that property. So we'd be actually citing the owner of that property. And then hopefully that owner, if he stands to lose something, perhaps he'll bring a little pressure to bear on Mr. Muntz to get it cleaned up.
Michael, what about the material that is on the public right of way?
The material that's on the public right of way?
Yes, because he doesn't own that, so.
Correct, and you cannot obstruct the public right of way. You know, we can move it off the right of way, and he can move it off the right of way.
But I guess, has he been cited for dumping that on the public right of way?
I think the particular statute that he was originally cited under and tried for was a violation of, actually it's a drainage ordinance, obstructing drainage, which was an unusual route to go.
Like I said, it wasn't, there's a different.
I think there's a different statute, I think that would provide a better result. There's a different statute that applies specifically to junk, and that statute, I say statute, city ordinance that applies to junk. That junk ordinance would allow us, under the express language of the statute, to remove the material if he doesn't remove it within the time period that he's given.
Remove it as trash.
Yeah, and look, that's part of the issue here, is, you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So obviously his defense is gonna be that ain't junk. You know, it's got value. And I mean, it's got some value, but at some point in time, every piece of junk has value. I mean, that's why they have scrap yards, okay? But that doesn't make it not junk. But that's gonna be his argument. How much mileage he gets out of that, we'll have to wait and see.
Has he been cited for the material that's on the city right of way?
Yes, he was cited for obstruction of drainage, I believe is what he was cited for.
Okay, so if that was not the proper citation or ordinance to issue it, can you go back with another citation which you feel is correct ordinance?
There's probably some double jeopardy issues there, but I guess my answer to that would be maybe, Brad.
You know, it just falls into, if I build something, I don't have a permit from the city, it's not in accordance with the ordinance as far as the setback, you know? I mean, I get fined, but at the same time, there should be a judgment to make me move the building back to where it conforms with the ordinance. Otherwise, why do we have ordinances? Yeah. I think somebody else has that on
I think the lesson to be learned from this whole situation is, you know, if you go hunting for bear, you bring a bear gun. If you go hunting for rabbit, you bring a bear gun. I mean, you know, what probably should have happened is, you know, there should have been a real hard look at every single thing we could have cited Mr. Muntz for. And instead of picking one, we should have picked them all and cited them under everything that was available. And that's, I mean, there's nothing improper about that or illegal about that or anything else. I mean, you can be charged with multiple offenses for the same transaction or occurrence, and that's probably what should have been done. And look, that's, hindsight's 20/20, that's not anybody's fault, you know, but given that, hindsight being 20/20, that's probably what should have been done. We should have gone in, picked out every statute that we could have charged him under all those statutes, and specifically the one that would have given us the best opportunity as a remedy to remove the stuff ourselves.
So moving forward, where are we? I mean,
So moving forward, is we're gonna go to the judge, ask the judge to hold him in contempt, and see if we can get the judge to order that we be allowed to remove him. That's gonna be within the judge's discretion.
that would be off of his private property or on the
That's gonna
city
be off of
property?
that's gonna be off of everything.
Okay.
That's gonna be to remove the stuff. Okay. And then at the same time, we're gonna pursue an action against the owner of the neighboring property where all this stuff is being sword, for lack of a better word, and see what kind of mileage we get out of that as well.
He's an assessor.
Exactly, he's an accomplice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, Ms. Land?
Just
Step?
a point of order here, man. We keep using the term city right of way and the ownership of the property. Property owner owns the property. We just have the right to go with utilities. Got it? Well, let's clear that. Because I get it, a lot of calls. Now, listen,
That's more or less true. It differs in different parts of the city, actually.
that's what I'm saying.
In some spots, the city actually owns the right of way. In other spots, the landowner owns the right of way,
Right.
subject to that right of way. But regardless, what a lot of these ordinances will allow you to do is to remove obstructions from the city right of way, regardless of who owns it.
Yeah, but I just want to make it clear, because if I'm just a person listening to this, well, the first thing that comes to my mind, well, I'm not gonna cut my grass on the other side of that sidewalk.
But there's an ordinance, actually a state law, that says that that property owner is responsible for keeping up the banquet.
Okay, with the case with this guy right here, whoever he is, he can maintain the fact that it's my property, it's on my property. Well, Mike, you're an attorney, where do we fit in with this?
So I think the answer to that, Mr. Martin, is you can't obstruct the right of way.
Okay.
So
All right, that's fine, that's fine.
it can be his property, but it's also subject to our right of way.
Okay,
And there are ordinances and state laws that prevent you from obstructing rights of way.
gotcha. Okay, that's all I want. Thank you.
Mayor, I think that, is what is come before the committee, and the committee recesses.
Thank you. Lots of good conversation, though, lots of good conversation. Insurance and personnel, Alderwoman Marks.
Okay, we have the Insurance and Personnel Committee, and we do have a quorum present. The purpose of the said meeting will be to consider just a brief discussion item, no action items, regarding we had a meeting, and we discussed the due dates of renewal reinsurance, bundle insurance packages were reviewed, and we're waiting on a brochure in progress for us to review, but everything is on track at this time. There's no further business or action items, yes, Steph?
Just, it's a little bit off way, but I would like to recognize, we had a previous council member pass, Mr. Nelson Arsenal.
Okay.
And Chad, I don't know, his funeral is gonna be Saturday. Is there anything that we can, just a little proclamation or something, just thanking him for his service on the council?
Absolutely,
If you can
absolutely.
do that, I would appreciate it.
Yes.
He did serve on this council. Matter of fact, he was the only person that I know that served on both police jury and the city council.
Wasn't he near 100? Or over
102. Right.
100 years old? Me and Jeff were talking about Mr. Nelson Arsenault today, actually.
Yeah, well, if you can put something together and I can pick it up either tomorrow or Friday. The funeral will be at St. Teresa at 10 o'clock, so we don't want to pay y'all this thing.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Any discussion? The committee rests.
Thank you, Mel. Community Economic Development, Alderwoman Chesson.
Thank you very much. The Community and Economic Development Committee will come to order, and we do have a quorum. There are no action items, and I promise I will make my report as brief as possible. The Tourism Director, planning continues for the first annual Red, Whites, and Blue 4th of July celebration to be held in the Acadia Rice Arena on July 4th. Gates will open for this free event at 10 a.m. It will feature a barbecue cook-off and live music with a spectacular fireworks show planned for 9 p.m.
I want to comment on the fireworks show. Just FYI, we solicited sponsors for the fireworks show, and we have collected more than enough sponsorships for the fireworks show, so we'll actually be able to pay for some of the bands also. There will be 0 tax dollars spent on fireworks.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And thanks to Val for her work in getting that together. Also, in conjunction with the city of Jennings, the first Crowley Jennings Invitational Golf Tournament will be held on September 2nd and 3rd. Play will be held on both courses during the 2-day event. And Mayor, you may want to elaborate on where the funding will go for that.
Yes, so the Jennings mayor contacted me a few months back. Well, we actually met each other at an event, and he wanted to get together with the city of Crowley and do a golf tournament, a 2-day golf tournament, 2-man scramble. He has posted the flyers and stuff on his Facebook page. I will be posting them soon. It's a fundraiser for the 2 cities. The city of Jennings has a nonprofit organization that they're going to utilize for the fundraising and the donations. And then when it's all said and done, they're gonna cut us a check for half the profits. It's for community development things, just different things throughout the community that we may need. $8,000 slide, it could be used for that. Sidewalks in the sidewalk and the extra parking, handicap parking spot that we're fixing to pull the trigger on at Martin Luther King Center. It could be used for that. So it's for community development. Originally we thought about naming it the Mayor's Cup, but we didn't want anybody to think that was some kind of political finances. So we named it after the 2 cities because none of the money will come to either one of us. It's 100% for the cities, and we're getting some good response from it. So it's the Friday evening will be the Calcutta and social, and then Saturday and Sunday the teams will swap, and they'll be able to play both courses here in Crowley and Jennings.
And I know that sign up is on the website or the Facebook page for the city of Crowley.
Yes.
And I want to commend you and Mayor Gwen. Some of the best ways to get ideas and a little bit of peer pressure is to talk with those that are in your same position in other cities to see what they're doing, and many times we can partner with things, and I think it's a great idea.
I'll tell you, Henry is a great friend to have. He's full of information and knowledge, and
Very helpful.
Very helpful, yes.
So, Crowley Main Street. The recent art and wine stroll was very successful and it was well attended. Interviews are currently being conducted for the Main Street director with plans to finalize that selection very soon and have someone in place by early to mid-July. And I will say there were some outstanding candidates, and yes, a decision will be coming very soon. Acadia Parish Chamber of Commerce. Acadia Quarterly Luncheon will be held at LSUE on Thursday, June 29th. And I see Brad writing, and I have copies of this for all of you. Beginning at 11:30. Contact the Chamber for tickets and more information. Chamber board members, I gave you one. Thank you. Chamber board members and staff are in the process of planning for their coming year. More information will be shared on that shortly. Crowley Garden Club. The end of the year luncheon was held at the home of Mrs. Georgia Pettijohn. New officers were introduced and sworn in. Christy Brammer will serve as president with Sammy Reggie as vice president. They, along with Ms. Georgie and Christy LeBlanc, attended the president's lunch at the home of the district president on May 31st as they met with presidents from other clubs in the district to get insight on how to prepare and plan for the coming year. West Crowley Beautification. This group is still working on the West Crowley Beautification Project, Yards of the Month, and West Crowley Cleanup. The Historic District Committee volunteers continued the beautification project by planting flowers along West Hutchison. And the only other thing that I just want to mention, someone mentioned it to me today, in partnership with the Crowley Fire Department, the Crowley Lions Club will be selling tickets for a seafood etouffee lunch and dessert planned for Friday, August 18th. Tickets are $15 each. Meals can be picked up between 10:30 and 1:30 that day, and the proceeds will go toward updating equipment for the fire department and the Louisiana Lions Club camp. With that, there is no other business, or does anyone have anything else that they need to mention? With that, there's no other business, the committee will recess.
Thank you, Mel. Revenue and Finance, Alderman Lochley, there is an action item on there that doesn't need to be on there. That was, we did that with the partial payment that in recreation, and so it doesn't have to be on revenue and finance.
I'll deny the referral.
There you go. So we'll, we'll take that off of the agenda. Any other business?
No other business, any comments or discussion?
So, thank you all. Thank you all for all the conversations. It was great. Any questions or concerns, please remember, City Hall is open and so is the mayor's office. Y'all come on and visit.
It's not east or north or something, it's Crowley beautification. Well, what I'm saying, if you have somebody that's got a nice garden, it's actually an address, I'm gonna take a look at it.
Okay.
And it just